Entrando em contato com atendimento ao cliente... Para muitas pessoas é um jeito fácil de arruinar um bom dia. Mas na Zendesk, nós deixamos a experiência do cliente melhor. Melhor para sua avó, melhor para o seu vendedor preferido de flores, melhor para o cara do apartamento 3A, melhor para você, melhor para todos. Porque enquanto alguns dizem que o cliente sempre tem razão, nós dizemos que o cliente é sempre humano. E como seres humanos, queremos fazer algo melhor para todos nós. Zendesk, experiência do cliente com IA desenvolvida para humanos.
Quer desenvolver os talentos da sua equipe e potencializar os resultados da sua empresa? Conte com a expertise do atendimento corporativo do Senac São Paulo, que já capacitou mais de 1 milhão de pessoas e profissionais de instituições públicas, privadas e terceiro setor. Construa uma equipe altamente motivada e capacitada e destaque-se no mercado. Entre em contato, acesse sp.senac.br/corporativo e saiba mais. Quer saber? Senac.
I got to tell y'all about the time that it was my first day at a new job, and I walk into the office. I'm greeted by the CHRO and my new coworkers. It was a startup, so it was a very small HR department. There was me, the CHRO, a benefits manager, and then a recruiter, and just little old me, right? I was a good 10 years, though, already in my career, okay? And we're welcoming, and the recruiter was like, I actually brought breakfast for us to welcome you. And it was so nice. Matter of fact, that person is still one of my work besties 10 plus years later. So she was very welcoming and she was great. And the CHRO looks at me. Remember, first day, I literally just walked in the door and she was like, oh, you should go get us some coffees and some forks and knives.
You?
Oh my gosh.
Welcome-ish.
Now, do keep in mind, I'm 10 years in. I'm above entry level. I'm like mid level at this point. I'm probably the youngest, though, still between the three of them. So now I'm the fourth, right? And I looked shocked not because I wouldn't go get the coffee and the forks, but I don't even know where the fuck to go, right?
Oh, yeah.
I literally just walked in the building.
Right.
So
you're like, I'll go to McDonald's.
Can you be our bitch?
I'll be right back.
I was like,
gosh.
Okay. So thank gosh, I'm going to actually shout out my work bestie. Her name is Brandy. She looks at me and she's like, hey girl, come here. I'm going to show you where they're at. So she knew enough, like how fucking ridiculous is that? So she takes me to the kitchen and she helps me figure out coffee orders essentially and getting forks and knives. And she was like, don't worry, she's a bitch like that. And I'm telling you, that solidified our relationship that we're still friends to this day. I think that was in 2014.
But she couldn't say that during the interview?
Well, you know what?
She thought you'd be her work best. She's like, I need her.
Right. Yeah, I should have known, honestly, in the interview because I interviewed with the recruiter and the benefits manager during my interview, and it was great, and we all vibed so well. It was an incredible interview. And then the CHRO came in, and just the questions she were asking, they were off-color questions. I wish I could remember. She asked something if I was married.
Oh,
she
gosh.
asked, and I remember like my eyes going wide. She asked, looking at my address and where I was located, she asked if my commute was going to be an issue for me. Because I lived a good 45 minutes away from the city. Right. Yeah. She asked about childcare. Like all the things that you're not supposed to ask.
She's like a training video.
Oh, God. Y'all, I have so many stories about this woman. I ended up staying at this company for 5 years. It's a very long story. I actually told a story about it on TikTok about I stayed there because me and my husband were trying to conceive my youngest, and that's part of the reason why I ended up staying for as long as I did.
You needed stability.
And benefits.
And
all the things.
Yeah. But honestly, working there with those two other women, my bestie and then the benefits manager, like we were so close and we vibed so well and we just got shit done. Yeah. And like I said, I actually currently work with that bestie again, and she's amazing and I love her so much, but we got through some shit. And imagine asking someone, it's kind of like when I told you all the story about that poor girl that didn't even know where the bathroom was.
Right.
Like she's already asking me to get coffee. But the worst part is that continued on for the 5 years.
Oh yeah. I was going to ask if she continued to turn you into her bitch.
Yeah.
She'd be like, Jamie.
Even as we grew, because it was a startup and we added positions, even like lower levels, like recruiting coordinators and, I was still always the bitch. And she would outright say that I was her right and left hand, but she didn't give me the respect.
Yes. Her bitch.
Yeah.
Yeah, she had a closed fist when it came to giving you.
She was.
What?
I have so many stories about her. There'll probably be another one on the
Yeah, it's a good thing we got season 12 mapped out.
I know, exactly.
So many stories about her. But
now, what would you have done, Ashley? I'm curious. If it's your first day, you literally just walked in the building. There a couple minutes, right?
Yeah,
I mean, like really.
Literally.
And you were asked by the head honcho to basically start just doing stuff like menial tasks, not related to your job. You don't know where anything is.
Right. I mean, I'd probably look to my left and right to see if I was getting punked. And when I saw she was serious, I probably would have been like, the fuck? And I would have been so resentful, and that would have bubbled up and things.
Oh, yeah.
And I would have thought, and when going to get the coffee, I would have thought that, where else was I interviewing? What are the opportunities for this? What the fuck? I would have been
I really need this job?
Texting my girl's best friend. I would have been unproductive from day one because I would have been.
Well, and
shut you down, right? I mean,
what about you? Are you?
Well, y'all know I'm just a tad transparent, but I typically roll it in sugar, right? I mean, I am Texan.
Well,
yeah.
So I was just thinking that, like, what would I have done? And I think I would have said something like, I just got here.
What the fuck?
Like, I would like make jokes, like to like point out how people
are. You are.
Yeah,
exactly.
Not you, but exactly. Like, I don't want to call you dumb as hell. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, that would be rude, but I'm going to be like, I just got here. Like, where is everything?
Yeah.
You know? And I would like kind of put it in that dumb, like laugh, chuckle, like, you're tripping, bitch.
Literally.
Without saying it, you know, because I wouldn't have moved. Yeah, and I knew that I wouldn't have done that because I would, like you said, I wouldn't have known where to go or anything.
I'm so thankful for my work bestie that like easily was like dumbfounded by that question. Matter of fact, she still tells people that story. Like on Jamie's first day,
woman, yeah,
she because she even knew, was like, that was insane.
Right? She probably was like, what?
Yeah.
You know,
look, I'm not below getting anyone coffee.
No.
Like
Always,
that's not
good to
that
help.
wasn't it. It was the fact that I literally had walked in. I am not kidding. It probably hadn't been 10 minutes.
Right. Well, I don't.
And
but
she should have got you coffee.
Well, that's the thing. Exactly.
Or show me where it is.
In any type of environment, it should not be anyone's job to continuously get coffee. People can get their own coffee.
I know.
And in even an assistant type role, like we've all seen Devil Wears Prada, even in an assistant type role, generally you're assistant to set someone up for professional success. That does not mean you're someone's bitch and go and get it. And there's some people that love that stuff. Like I know all sorts of people that like that's what they absolutely love. But in a appropriate, respectful workplace culture, everybody can go and get their own shit. Because also, what are you going to have a tray? Come back, do like,
I know,
come
like
back.
What do you then? 4 people, and I'm like, literally, how am I going to carry?
Well, then exactly. Well, obviously, you have to bring hers first. Otherwise, you're going to get.
And I hadn't even put down like my purse yet.
No,
I'm
you
not
still had your shit on?
Did you take your purse? I would have been so weirded out walking my purse.
And it was in February, so I had a coat on.
Turned it into a fanny pack. Well, shit. What do I do in this situation?
Like literally, like I said, my friend Brandy was like, here's your desk, bitch.
And
was like, let me put my stuff down.
I don't like that.
Oh gosh. Well, Jamie, welcome to this podcast. That's more welcome than you got in that job. That's for damn sure.
I'm Becca Platsky, CPA scorned.
And I'm Adam Platsky, Data Analytics Playboy.
And we're the hosts of Corporate Gossip. It's the business podcast for gossip lovers. We make complex business topics fun and easy to understand by treating Bloomberg like a gossip mag. You think reality TV is messy? You haven't even met the billionaire CEOs we cover in our podcast.
It kind of makes you think they might not be qualified for their jobs.
It's funny because it's true. You can listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Thank you, though, for joining our meeting today. We got a good one for you, I think. That was our hot goss straight from the water cooler, courtesy of Jamie. And, on the agenda for today, we are going to transition into some cringe corporate speak, and that's going to be brought to y'all today by moi. That means me in French.
Fancy.
I know. I just randomly, I started speaking another language. Croissant. All right. And then we're going to move into our hot topic of the day, and that is anything and everything having to do with corporate politics. Oh gosh, don't we love them? We do, right? Everyone's shaking their heads here. Big sighs around the room.
Election year.
Oh gosh, it's about to get more politically. But we will discuss that today. And then as always, of course, we will transition into questions and comments. So may I please go ahead and kick us off with our cringe corporate speak of the day?
Yes, please.
Yes. You know, when you're in court as a lawyer, you generally have to start arguments, or at least you do in law school when you're pretending to be in court, and you have to say, may it please the court.
Oh, so I should
Corny.
say that.
Yeah, may it please the besties.
May it please the besties. I would like to continue with the cringe corporate
approved.
speak.
Allow.
All right. Well, what I got for y'all today, I don't know if it's like a regional thing or if it's universal, but lipstick on a pig. Does anyone use that? Lipstick on a pig?
I've heard it. I've never used it, though. I've
All
definitely
right.
heard it.
Lipstick on a pig.
Yep.
So I'm sure some people are cringing, as you should, but lipstick on a pig is just trying to make something ugly pretty.
Yep.
Right? So they say pigs are ugly. And I've seen some cute pigs, like Babe. Remember that shit?
Yeah.
Like cute little thing.
Oh, I love that movie.
Yeah, so it's kind of offensive to piglets, you know, and Piglet himself is fresh from the poos. But yeah, lipstick on a pig, just trying to, you know, make something dumb, ugly, and ridiculous we're doing at work. You know, we're trying to prettify something.
Right.
This was used a lot for me at a defense contractor that I worked for.
Wow.
So maybe a more traditional seniority-based workforce, a little bit old school.
Yeah.
And definitely very Texana where I was living at the time. So to me, I always wondered, oh my gosh, like what, is this just like a regional thing? Like it's just like, because there's lots of pigs around, literally and figuratively. Like, is that why we're using this? And people love that. We'll put lipstick on a pig, you know?
Yep.
But, you know, for me, it was kind of like they would say that when it was like the most dire situation, like you couldn't make it pretty.
Right.
Like it was, I was bleeding, you know, like there's nothing, it was a slaughtered pig, you know, it was a Hawaiian pig, like just,
With the
just
apple in its
slayed
mouth,
exactly. Like how am I supposed to prettify that thing, you know? This ship's done sailed,
those,
you know?
The red polished apple.
There you go. Okay. It was a poison apple. Yeah, I was like, I'm sorry. I'm not a magician, but that's okay. All righty. There's our cringe corporate speak. Transitioning into corporate politics. Who wants to kick us off on that?
I'll kick us off. And I think the corporate politics, I'm curious what different people think it is, but generally corporate politics, the way you can see it is if you're in that situation and you're like, this is what we should do, but we cannot do that because this person likes this person likes this, especially people in leadership. Mm-hmm. And so you have to think like all of a sudden strategically, and you can't just have a very natural conversation and like, this is why, because they'll say, okay, well, we got to do this and we have to do the PowerPoint and in this font, we have to use the specific font. And then, well, we can't have these people in the same room because, 20 years ago, they had this situation. And so we're going to have to, and they disagree. And so it's this idea of having to think about nonsensical aspects of work because of relationships where like, especially leaders don't get along. I mean, it really is if you're looking at like, if you think of a preschool, like the twos class, maybe threes class, where it's like the kids are starting to like have different, and you have to be very strategic of like, well, this one doesn't nap and this one still's wearing a diaper. And that's, and to me, that's
this one shits their pants.
Exactly. It's especially in that leadership suite. And like, we have to treat people and think about their sensitivities as opposed to like, literally being able to lay out something and get things done quicker. And so the corporate politics, I think there are a lot of leaders that don't have a self-recognition, self-awareness to know that they've been self-elected into office and they may not realize it because they are someone that has certain particularities that are requiring the corporate politics.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for me personally, where I see the corporate politics that are just ripe. I mean, just like overwhelming. Like that is probably the majority of your workday are those orgs that I've worked in personally where the length of service was extensive. Right. Where, people reference themselves as lifers, organizations where that is the only place they've ever worked because you can imagine, right? Like just all the incestuousness and the relationships and the nepotism and the favoritism. They've grown up with these people, air quotes, And so I worked at a business where, not kidding, I mean, it was like a slap in the face how much I had to consider the corporate politics on the daily.
Yeah.
I mean, and I estimated it was probably 75, 80% of my workday.
Yeah.
Like legit. I was having meetings about meetings, the pre-meetings about meetings and the 10 meetings.
Pre-meeting. Oh my God. If you've never, please
It's
tell
so
what
true.
if anyone has never been in a, because someone is hearing that, what the fuck are you? I remember the first time I heard the concept pre-meeting and I was like, what is that? And my eyes were wide because like, no, but that's a meeting. That's an unnecessary meeting to me.
It is.
But Leigh.
But yet it's totally necessary.
Yeah.
If, for your own self-preservation in cultures like this, where, there's just lots of corporate politics, but a pre-meeting, to your question, is a meeting that you have to game plan and strategically kind of figure out how you will attack the actual meeting itself, right? Meaning, so you're going to talk about things like, ooh, should we even invite that person? Should we disinvite this person? If it's in person, where are people sitting? Let me sit here so I can tap her on the shoulder to just kind of, hey, let's mute yourself. You know what I mean? Like you're literally talking about positions in the room. You're talking about content, overly talking about content. You're over sanitizing content because it's like, okay, this is the pre-meeting for that meeting. Since we already invited so-and-so, we'll go ahead and talk about this subject, but we'll clean the deck for the real meeting without that guy that we're going to have.
Exactly.
We'll put that information back in. I mean, just the most ridiculous things.
Yeah.
And to echo your sentiment, Leigh, is what I was going to say is where I've seen the worst rampant corporate politics have been in the companies that been the most toxic for me.
Of course.
And so I can think of 2 companies of the handful that I've worked at, and just the same, the pre-meetings, the meeting after the meeting too,
the post-meeting.
to download.
Postmortem.
That's after the projects or the thing.
Yeah. That's
And in those, I never felt like I could be successful HR professional in those, I was able to do a limited portion of my job, but I could never truly be successful because of the bullshit politics, right?
You should be like a referee.
Yeah, there's some bullshit hierarchy and the Nepo babies or, so-and-so's been there 25 years plus. And well, this is how we've always done it. So that's cute, Jamie, that you want to try it this way, but that's not going to happen. So those are always like like I'm thinking back to one place in particular, and I'm like,
Jamie's cringing.
She is.
Well, because
she's shaking.
I don't think I realized while I was in it. I knew it was bad.
Yes,
but I didn't really realize until I left how bad it was. And
tends to be
the fucked up part. I don't think I've ever said this on the podcast or a TikTok is
our 2 avenues.
I know my 2 avenues of communication.
Well, so I got,
if a word falls from Jamie's mouth and it's not on the podcast or on TikTok, was it said?
I don't want to repeat a story and be boring as fuck. So, so anyway, my point is this, the one place I'm thinking of is I got really ill and I actually end up having pneumonia. And the thought of me being out sick was worse than me and them
actually
talking about me.
Right.
Even being
from
sick
that perspective
was worse for me than having pneumonia and legitimately being sick. And that's when I knew I had to leave. Because my worry, my anxiety, the stress, the physical illness of actually just me being sick wasn't worth, being in that environment and the corporate politics. And
because of losing political ground or control or standing, or they're all just going to be talking about me because that's what they do.
Can blame it on
exactly.
That was their MO. So when anyone went on vacation or was out, it was like, shit moved differently. So this person, let's say I have a person reporting to me. This happened, so I'm being very obvious.
Let's say,
someone reports
if you
to them, but Jamie's out, so we're gonna move this person under someone else.
Right.
We're gonna fire this person real quick. Yeah, no, literally,
because they just didn't like them, even though I had no write-ups on my person.
We don't want to manage them this week.
No. Well, literally, and it was just so cutthroat and just, and so that corporate politics equals toxicity to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's HR and having been in legal are two of the departments I think have a lot in corporate politics where if an idea stems from those two departments, legal by far being the worst. If an idea can never originate in legal, you can't ever say legal's driving this project because then CEO's like, fuck that, like absolutely not. And so frequently it was in legal and HR thinking about how do you get finance on board and turn this into finance driving this. And so it's like that relationship of like, okay, well, we have to loop in this person because they happen to have the CEO's ear. And so I'm sure there are some of those listening that are in HR that are like, they know that this can't be an HR or people pushing this. And so sometimes we talk about this of what can you do in the workplace. And so I think having these conversations within your team, and you'll see this in our discussion guide and in our email, if you get our HR Besties weekly emails, which if you don't, you should, but is to think about starting with your team, starting with yourself and then starting with your team of where are we spending unnecessary energy at work? What are the things you think about? In one very real example as well in corporate politics is like an email subject line. And asking people, do you feel
I'm not going
like,
to you for subject
do you
lines.
have to think about how you order these things?
Oh, don't get me fucking started on
the
invitees.
The CCs, BCs, CCs, how do you do the order of these? And I remember as a lawyer and a law firm lawyer and emailing the client, it was like, think about the client, think about their job title, think about this. Then our lawyers should be on CC because we're not the client. We're like this level of like energy and thinking about that. And some of it, I think in legal and HR, or I'll just talk about HR, there is some helpful conversation. Like especially as I was more junior in my career, especially coming up in corporate, is like, again, if you're talking about things, it's nice to have like, well, this will make everybody, this is the right thing to do. Like that's generally not going to get you across the line, unfortunately, in corporate. But just having this idea of like someone you're talking to, what do they care about? And some of that can be good because when it's political, it's not. If it's like credit and whose idea, but when it's like thinking about what other people care about and what are you maybe not thinking? Like if you're doing this, like, okay, what's the financial implication and what's going to be realistic here? And so I think there can be some angles of thinking about other people involved. But if you talk to your team and you're like, this seems like a wasted time effort, I think the email listing of subject line and listing of email addresses is a very real one. And who's invited to the meeting? Then everybody bitches about meetings until they're not invited to the meeting.
Exactly.
And
well, I feel like I should have been on it.
I should have been. Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Why wasn't I in there?
I mean, I've fucking done that shit too.
Well, I wasn't in this meeting, so like,
I don't know. Yeah.
So
I'm absolved from all this.
I'm done. I'll have no part in this because it's like the sensitivity. I mean, again, it goes back to the threes class. Well, I wasn't in DuckDuckGo, so fuck y'all. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's very real emotions, right? Everything that's happening out in the real world is copy pasted into the workplace because people, right? That's the constant, right? So people be people and people are bringing all their baggage and their pain and their joy and all of that. And so there are a lot of hurt feelings, which I feel is kind of the impetus, just the core of corporate politics. I swear that's what it is. It's the feels, right? But we put this, these big words on it, but really that's what it is. It's like kids on the playground and they didn't want to play with me and they did and all of this. And that's where I know we've talked about this previously in other episodes, that emotional intelligence, those softer skills really come into play. The ability to influence, my gosh, that is so key and critical to really survive and master, an environment that just has like rich corporate politics. But from my opinion, I'd love to hear y'all's, you can't change an environment like that, right? Because you're just one person. You can do good things. But for me, I felt as though, well, hey, that is just a reflection of a culture that, again, in my experience, has been occurring and growing for 100+ years. Like, I'm not going to be able to really turn this. I can run my team this way. I can lead this way. I can make impressions and impacts this way. This is just the ticket to play. Like it is just going to be part of it. You know what I mean? And it's very derailing to my job sometimes. And is that okay with me? Right? Because people ask me, well, how do I get rid of the politics? That's going to be that environment. You know what I mean?
It's going to be that. But sometimes it's, I've had some success in like moving the needle, which is probably cringy speak, but like making, because it is, you're not going to change things
You
overnight.
are
No matter,
not
and if you
alone.
try to come in and present like, well, this is what I could, you might be right, but you will be wrong as hell. Like you will be like, you better pack your bags. You really
remember, I love to say, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy?
That's right. That's, you know what? It's spot on. And so, but it's thinking about if you can, and sometimes it's asking people like the words pilot program, like sometimes just giving it a try. Like, could we try this and this? It, like, again, while that shouldn't be needed, sometimes that's where you can make the change is to show something in a group and show how that happens and show the results. And because there is that root of fear and fear up through the top levels of the CEO is afraid of the board. The board is afraid of, you know, publicity, shareholders, depending on the organization. Everybody has that built-in fear. And so they try to do that by having control, which means everybody else sees those ripple effects. But like, I remember one quick story, someone in my comments had, and I thought this was a really good example of corporate politics. And they said they got to, you know, ride in the corporate plane for the first time. And they were like, I got to. And they're like, someone stopped me as I was getting ready to go on the plane. They're like, no, the COO needs to go on first. And they're like, the funny thing is like the COO was not like that at all, but the people surrounding them how this
created this environment,
and so,
right?
and they're like, and she's like, as I look back, I don't know that he had any awareness of that. So that's why I think leaders need to talk about that and show that approachability, because a lot of the people around you are trying to be protective and it turns into political environment.
Like it truly does start at the top. And that's what key coaching I give, you know, the CEOs or GMs, people, whatever their titles are, you know, the head person, is that, you know, people lead and follow what you do. They keep perpetuating these things. They are intentionally sanitizing messages to you. Whether you didn't ask for that, you know, but they are doing that, right? You really have no idea, right? You can't make suggestions in that position. Everything's an edict or a mandate or whatever, right? I mean, so you really have to be careful with them.
I know in that very toxic place that I worked at, I used to like to really put bugs into the CEO's ear. Like, not literal bugs. We're not talking about Leigh in a car wash. But like,
or a tongue in the ear.
She had to have everything be her idea.
Oh, yes.
So, and she had to be brilliant. So I learned that pretty quick. So I knew that I could influence her.
There's politics, right?
And it sounds really shitty, but I'd be like, "Oh, remember
if,
remember when you suggested?" Like,
I would do it to her all the time. Hey, remember when you said to look at our nurses' rates? I did, and it looks like we need to bump everyone to this to be competitive in the market. Like, I know shit, it worked every time.
Like, you were spot on with that, CEO.
Yeah,
exactly.
She was like, I did, and then she looks like the hero. I don't care. I don't need the glory. But it's sad that like. That's what I had to do almost to like, one, to take care of my employees, but two, to survive.
Absolutely. Yeah. So. Using those soft skills. Look at you, your superpowers. Oh gosh. Well, don't we love corporate politics? I'm exhausted. I don't know about you all, but now transitioning to questions and comments, because I do know that we have a hard stop. Jamie's got somewhere to be, of course. Ashley and I will probably hang over and just shoot the shit for a little bit.
We'll hang over and get hungover.
Yeah. I know, exactly. But any questions or comments?
I have a question.
Yes.
Have you all ever heard the term hairy arms?
As an adage?
I mean,
no.
So I had heard this once, and this was the idea of there was an ad agency and they would design advertisements. And they had this client, there was a difficult client, but they realized that this client, the thing that this one person really hated was hair on male models' arms. And so over time, they realized they're like, we could kind of do whatever we want, but the client would be like, oh God, get the hair off the arms. And so it was this idea that, so they would like make an advertisement like they wanted, and they would make sure that the male models had hair. And the client would be like, oh God, get rid of the hair. Like, it's fine.
Distract them because
rarely do people want to give it a yes. They always want something that they want to nitpick. And so in the legal context, you'd be like, put something in a contract that like if someone accepts, like fantastic. But ideally it'd be so egregious that they'd be like, we're not going to accept that. And then we can accept that, move on. And so in the corporate sense, it's like something that like you say, if you have a project or idea or something, there was something just out of hairy arms. And so every time I've brought this up, I think I heard on some other podcast years ago, and I, if I remember it, I'll put it in the show notes to give some attribution. But it was, so every time I've asked people, do you know what hairy arms are? And no one ever knows, but they always have
that. Now I do, and I'm going to use the hairy arms.
Use the hairy arms. They use
it's very strategic. Use the hairy arms.
Exactly.
Put the ugly pig out.
Yeah, put that lipstick on the pig and then wipe it off and then just have a feast.
Love.
I actually have a comment and a question.
Oh, okay.
I'll ask my question first.
Crazy.
Ashley, you brought up, like the order that you copy people in an email. So I want to know, because I do a lot of micro feminisms sometimes when I'm in the workplace.
Putting women first.
Yeah. So when I'm writing an email, I'll put the women first. Or when I'm speaking in front of a classroom, I'll introduce a woman first, or I will speak to the women first. I didn't even realize I was doing it until I saw a TikTok on it. And I'm oh my God, I totally do.
Yeah, I do that.
Little micro feminine. Do y'all do anything like that? I do.
I'm macro feminism in the office, And I was really consciously doing that, especially in organizations, because where I began was somewhere that was very, they would say, male and stale. That's what they would call themselves. So just a lot of older men, the workforce predominantly male. And so very intentionally, I would do that, right? Because I feel like language is power, and that language is what moves culture. And it's so that's how we transform. And so I was doing that very intentionally, very early in my career. Putting Sheila first and then Bob, to just try and make a more, I guess, safer workplace, more inclusive workplace for all. Yeah. So I never heard it called that. And that's funny that you've seen TikToks on that, people doing that,
recently. But I even do it on my pages, because I don't think a lot of my meme pages are faceless. You might know me if you watch my stories or, but my pages are faceless. And so most people just think it's a dude running my pages.
Of course, they make the assumption.
And so,
okay, dude.
I actually post more female content creators and more females than anything else. Yeah. And I do that on purpose.
It's good to give voice.
I also do a lot of people of color on purpose, because I want to provide them a platform of, millions
amplified voices, right?
Followers. But I think that's, I don't know. It's just something I've always done almost subconsciously. And when I saw the TikTok, cool. I was holy shit, I do that. I didn't even realize that. Yeah. Also, if you ever DM me and call me dude, bro, I'm going to say I'm a chick. And I always do, because I make sure that there's a funny ass chick running this page.
There you go.
And then I'll real quick, I know I'm hard stop, but I really just want to say fuck you to the corporate. No, I know. I looked at you. I'm sorry, not you.
I was like, okay.
Here, I'll look at fuck you to that place of employment that literally made me ill. And I had to take a month for myself before I looked for another job after I quit, because mentally I was ruined. I still have PTSD. And I know that they listen to the pod, because I've heard that they like to stalk my shit. Y'all. So fuck you.
For real.
Catharsis.
I hope you enjoy the pod.
Right. Oh gosh. Well, I don't know. I'm kind of fuck y'all now, So yeah, fuck, fuck all my previous places too that didn't deserve me.
God, you gave me so much trauma.
Absolutely, they did not deserve you.
No.
They did not deserve you. I mean, for an organization like that to chew you up and spit you out, bullshit.
Yeah.
For real. Bullshit. Gosh, like I said, I got a little dizzy there. I got all fired up for you, So what is my question and comment? I think I have more of a comment today, and maybe a quick story. But, I've had people ask me, well, how do you, define politics, or how do you know an organization is very political and all of this? And for me, one of the glaring things beyond lack of civility and your own feeling that I can't get anything done, I can't be productive because I'm so worried about how everyone else feels. That to me, that's a huge indication of politics. But another one that we haven't discussed today is the gossip mills, right? And that weaponization of gossip. And you always see that, with your peers. I think that is, just normal. As we talked before, I shared before about information being power and people needing that, to do their jobs. And, so you always hear a little something like this. Hopefully it's not ugly, right? People making fun of people and all of this. and meaning it, you know, a little cheeky. Okay, fine. But when I see the C-suite doing that, and I've worked in places where the C-suite, oh my gosh, the CHRO is the biggest shit talker, I mean, on the face of the planet. Just know that when you walk out of that meeting with that bitch, she is doing the same thing.
Yeah.
She's saying the same shit about you.
Yep.
Nod. Do not play along with that shit. That's what I'd have to do. Just sit there. Oh, okay. So you're crazy. Okay. Yeah, you're a bitch. Okay, great. And now you're about to go and talk to my peer and talk shit about me.
Yep.
Just know that. And just know that they're trying to get things out of you and they will use that. So she would probably want to use that as kindling her fodder in the next conversation with my peer. Well, Leigh said X, Y, Z, oh, bitch, what did you say? Right. So never play into that. Very rare would I even agree. I'm just listening. Thank you for sharing. Just listening. Great. But for me, that is a big one in political, organizations. My God, it's just constantly backstabbing and stick-its and all of this. And it's just that gossip. But when it comes from the C-suite, it's heartbreaking because you just know you're led by a bunch of fucking insecure idiots.
Yeah.
So previous workplaces.
Yeah. It's also it's really not that serious, guys. We are literally not saving lives.
But to some people, that's all they have. And so that's actually what that showed to me. Look how empty.
Yeah.
Look how pathetic.
Sad. Yeah.
Look how sad. Just sitting at home with no family, no friends. You've isolated yourself. You live for the dollar. Thank you. Full circle. I love that. And on that note, we'll wrap up today. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you all very, very much.